You know, as an online critic, there are two things that I think are to be expected when you make videos, especially if those videos tend to be slightly negative and are based upon still continuing properties. The first is that you'll get some really dumb comments. Duh. The second is you're going to be wrong about topics every now and then, especially when you're a channel with a healthy amount of views, subs, and videos. Not everything is going to be a home run. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. What I mean is, depending on how you levy your criticism, as well as if the materials you're covering are complete or in progress, being proven wrong can be a good thing. Case in point, my last 3 Helluva Boss videos were to analyze what information we had about the characters, I gave my impressions on said information, and gave my hopes on what could be done to improve the flaws that I had with the characters. As such, let's talk about the latest episode. Hi, I'm MangaKamen, nice to meet ya. Well, I say we talk about the latest episode, but I really don't like talking about individual episodes anymore. I don't think doing a review of something that a majority of people have probably already seen is productive. I mean, what's the point of me giving my opinion on something that others can watch for free on YouTube and make their own judgment call? To me, there's nothing really to be gained for reviewing a show's single episode by single episode, and this is from someone who used to do that constantly. So today, we'll be doing this video a little differently. We'll look at the episode in retrospect and see if it does anything to my past 3 videos about this topic. If you'd like a refresher, I'll be providing links to said videos down below in the pinned comment or description. Or if this is a combination video as I tend to do, well, I'm sure you've already seen those videos up to this point. So let's begin then. Allow me to say this in the most eloquent way possible. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This episode doesn't do anything to my complaints and issues with Millie as a character. At best, we mostly get her as a straight man, and that's a comedy term for those who don't know it. It's basically where the character is to remain composed and has to deal with the comedy partner's eccentricities. In this case, Moxie, who has an obsession with art. At this point, I don't have any reason to retract any of my criticisms of Millie as a character. At best, we get a lovey-dovey scene of her and Moxie singing, but I already knew the two loved each other very much and could be a cute couple. Like, give me some new information. Moxie got more information about the character since he seems to be a man who enjoys supporting artists, which, as an artist myself, I can totally appreciate, but as a critic, I find this to be vapid and, you know, kinda dumb.
Whatever, man. Get the fuck out of here. You're cramping my business.
But hey, whatever. Next! Oh boy, I'm talking about shipping again. Stolitz and Blitz. We're getting back to mixed signals. Ugh. Now, before you type in the comments, I understand there's a perfectly good reason for this, but it's still something that we need to talk about.
On stage is half as good as it is in bed. You'll leave them breathless.
Flirting! Well, ain't that just peachy? Those who actually watched my video about Stolitz and Blitz's relationship, you will know that one of my issues is the obvious toxic relationship, and it gives me the weird vibes, especially when we're told and shown that it's very unhealthy, and even more so when there was a blatant falling out at the end of last season.
Stolitz, don't act like what we have is anything but you wanting me to fuck you, okay? You make that really clear all the time.
Am I just supposed to forget that Blitz took Stolitz on a date only as a means to spy on Moxie and Millie's date, and need to an escort to do so? Am I supposed to forget the episode before this one where Stolitz was making that song expressing his emotions on how his love was a sham?
Yes.
There's no awkwardness between the two characters, there's no tension, and it really comes off as jarring that the two are still being flirty between the two of them. Now, obviously, I know what your people are typing in the comments down below, which is weird because I haven't written this part of the script yet. You're gonna tell me, well, we're still waiting on part 2 of the season 1 finale. And that's all fine and dandy, and I understand that there's a reason for that. Bullshit copyright. But as a critic and someone who's watching this show, it's a bit of a big deal that there's a blatant missing part of the story, so I can't just assume whatever happens in that episode that we're missing will be adequate enough to elicit behavior between the two. However, by that same token, I can't assume what's in it will not be good enough either. As a critic, I can't form an opinion on things that I haven't seen or played or whatever, so until this episode comes out, I can only judge the material I'm presented with. That's also a double-edged sword with materials that are still in development, because while we can't say this is done well or not, I am allowed to critique whatever information I have access to via the show. As it stands, without the show as being presented, there is no explanation as to why these two are essentially back to where they were before. I can only speculate that the two hash things out in some way, and that unfortunately leads to something worse. More speculation and raised expectations. So now, if this lost episode of sorts doesn't do it quite right, this is going to be an issue. Also, since we're here, I want to talk about 2 more things about Stolitz. The first is I got a lot of people tell me, yeah, the relationship is toxic, that's the point. You could've fooled me. The show itself pushes the relationship. There's merchandise pushing the relationship. Quite a few people I've seen on social media push it, and even claim that it isn't toxic. Like, you can tell me the relationship being toxic is the point. No, duh, I get that. But I'll also see people defend the relationship and treat it as though it's actually healthy. Those are the type of people that if I bump into a dark alley, I'm running away! And this episode still pushes the relationship, so again, that missing episode better be so damn good it actually provides an antidote to this toxic status. It's not impossible for the two to fix the relationship or remove the toxic status element from it, but it's going to be a tall order. The second thing is, well, honestly, I feel kind of a little cheated here. We got this nice thumbnail of Octavia and Loona, and yet they only get like 2 minutes of interaction. Most of the episode is focused on the ship between Stolitz and Blitz. Which, hey, if you like, more power to ya. But I wish we had more interaction between Loona and Octavia, especially since we had this gorgeous thumbnail artwork. Of course, I do have more of a substantive reason as to why I'm not too keen on this focus on Stolitz. Then again, I'm also not a fan of twig boy relationships, so sue me, I guess. Like, throughout the entirety of the first season until episode 7, the relationship was more of a sexual one and didn't connect with me. Again, I'm sure there'll be some sort of an attempt in the missing episode, but this leads up to a lot of expectations that could have been tied together. Speaking of... I think this is probably going to be the most positive I'll be about this episode, since a lot of it does help Loona's characterization and somewhat development. I say somewhat because... but that's for another point. In this episode, we get a small sneak peek into Loona's past where Blitz adopts her. Obviously, this is a look into the terrible housing for young hellhounds where kennels are essentially prisons. I can appreciate the peek into Loona's past, as it gives us a look into Blitz and Loona's father-daughter relationship. And I ain't gonna lie, it did tug on my heartstrings a bit, but what does this make me want to do? It wants me to see more into Loona's past, like why was she even in the kennel in the first place? Was she there since she was a pup? Was she abandoned by her parents? Lots of questions, and it's fine to raise questions as it instills intrigue in the viewers, but my hope is that we at least get some semblance of these answers in the future. I will say this scene does make this one...
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll never replace you no matter what you...
a lot more bitter. Like, we've got this flashback where we see Loona on the verge of breaking down and being forced to live in a cage, and Blitz saves her from that. Then we get a heartfelt speech about how fathers screw up but still love their kids, and then Loona kicks Blitz in the groin. I get it's a joke, but even as a joke, it really comes off as jarring in a bad way. Like, I'm the first to laugh at jokes like these. And I'm not taking the jokes seriously, but as I've said numerous times, jokes aren't above criticism, as well as the placement of them. Like, you've got Loona explain to Octavia that you should cut your father some slack. Then... just leaves a sour taste in the mouth. And a joke like this can work, don't get me wrong, but it's the timing that makes it not really work for me, as well as how cruel it is. And I'm not saying you need to have Loona accept Blitz's embrace, but having Loona sidestep the hug and Blitz crash into something like a street lamp or a sign would have had the joke work and not have Loona look like a crazy bitch. That's because it'd be more passive, showing that while Loona still has distance, she isn't going to try to actively hurt Blitz. You know, the guy that got her out of prison. And I get it, demons. But there's just so much that excuse can be used, especially when you're showing that these demons have much more humanistic traits to them, such as empathy and caring for others. Which is why we should probably talk about the conversation between Loona and Octavia. Now, in a vacuum, I really like this conversation. I'm a huge sucker for things involving fathers. This sort of thing does hit a lot of key notes for a father who screwed up royally. Fathers tend to be viewed in a more positive light in families, as they're typically seen as the protectors, the provider, and the heads of the households in a traditional sense. So, when they screw up, they can be seen as tarnished. The conversation that Loona gives is a good reminder that fathers are human too, and as such, they'll screw up from time to time. Like, I've seen a couple complaints that Loona doesn't know Stolitz enough or has the details of Octavia's situation, and to me, that's an understandable complaint. But sometimes advice like this can work well, regardless if you know the person well enough or not. Kind words can have an impact on someone regardless of context, especially when it's the less of, people aren't perfect, even people you love. They'll make mistakes, and sometimes you need to accept that. I will say this conversation, when thrown together with what we've seen with Stolitz, it really rubs me the wrong way, and I've seen said online that it seems like the plot is doing what it can to give him a pass for being a bad father. Now, we really haven't had that many scenes of Stolitz even trying to make things up for Octavia, who is kind of a victim in all this. Saying that Stolitz is trying falls a little flat because we've only gotten one example of Stolitz trying to make things easier for Octavia during the divorce. and even then he couldn't help himself but hit on the one guy he cheated on Stella with during that time. I guess what I'm saying is, if you want me to take what Loona says saying a bit more seriously as a whole, I would have liked there to be more context given. Like, Loona doesn't really know Stolitz. The most that the show gives us is that she knows that her adoptive dad is being pegged by an owl demon. There's only one other one scene in the entire show with the characters in the same room other than this episode. Hell, if you want my opinion, which, well, you're watching a video where I'm giving an opinion, you wouldn't be watching at this point if you didn't care what I had to say, now did you? In my humble opinion, I feel as though Loona should have found Octavia sooner in the episode, and have them basically trying to salvage some semblance of a good time. You can still have Blitz and Stolitz's plotline, but you can also have Octavia and Loona meet up and actually establish a bond between the two. Maybe even have Loona at the start trying to get Octavia to come back to Stolitz, but Octavia is being stubborn about wanting to see the stars. Hell, have the two complain about their fathers as they travel through LA, and that way Loona gets an idea of Stolitz's character from Octavia's point of view, and Octavia can see that Loona understands where she's coming from with a terrible father. Then, when the two actually make it to the observatory, you can have that conversation where Loona tells Octavia that Stolitz is trying. Granted, I'm not a writer on this show. I'm just a guy on it with a YouTube channel coming up with what I think could be a better piece of writing than this. And I'm sure there's some issues. I'm just giving my thoughts and opinions out there. I liked the episode, but don't expect me to do this every time a new episode comes out. A lot of people have just asked me my opinion on this subject when the new episode dropped, and I feel like I had to do it. I'm still reserving my judgment for this season for at least a few more episodes, and a lot of what I said here is also dependent on that missing episode. Knowing my luck, this missing episode will come out just after this video does, but we'll see how things will go. I don't want people to think that I'm against this episode. I think it's a good step in the right direction for the show, but there are issues, and it really doesn't address my criticisms in my last 3 videos about this show. Hell, if I could argue, there are some other issues that do crop up because of it. So do I think I'm wrong about Helluva Boss? No, not really. I still enjoyed the episode. There were moments I really liked, and still at this point, I've had my say, and I'd like to know what you guys have to say down below. Was I proven wrong by this episode? Let me know in the comments down below. But if you don't know what to say for a comment, well, kick to the groin, I guess. Till next time, my friends, I'm Kamen, and have a lovely day.